Hey guys, thanks for coming out to the panel. My name's Nate Haskins. I'm a part of a three-person team called Bunny Gun Games, our local St. Louis studio, and we're focused on virtual reality development. So today's panel, I wanted to kind of address the steps you got to take to get into virtual reality development, and I'm going to do it in three parts, essentially. And in the back, can you guys hear me okay? All right, cool. So first we're going to cover a brief history of VR. We're going to go to the current state of the VR devices, and then we're going to talk about making your own games in VR. So, does anybody recognize this poster for a movie that came out in the early 90s called The Lawnmower Man? So, a lot of the controversy around VR kind of started with this movie. And this idea of taking somebody and putting them into a virtual space. And we were really excited, or at least I was really excited, seeing this movie come out with the idea that this could be in the next 5 years. This could be something really cool for technology. A lot of manufacturers jumped on this concept. Unfortunately, it didn't work amazingly well yet. For example, the Nintendo Virtual Boy came out, and this was a system that was two colors, and it had basically like a grid you'd look at, and it had red and it had black. And it created this sensation where when you turn your head, the screen wouldn't exactly keep up with it. And so you ended up with this state where your eyes and your stomach and basically what keeps you balanced gets thrown off by these virtual products. And a term came out of this called simulator sickness. Now this is the bane of all virtual reality development at this moment. Simulator sickness happens when the trick to make your mind think you're in virtual space breaks somehow. This can happen through dropping frames, this can happen through lag, this can happen through bad programming, but it's pretty bad. If you hit simulator sickness, you immediately register this as, ooh, this isn't a good experience for me playing this game. So simulator sickness is something we'll talk about again. So what ended up happening is that through the 90s, it was pretty quiet with VR. Through the early 2000s, pretty quiet with any practical VR development until this guy came along. This is Lucky Palmer. And this is him in his shop, working on his own VR headset down at the corner there. And he was a self-proclaimed aficionado of VR technology at the time. So he took stuff like the Virtual Boy and he'd take it apart. And he'd take all these other products and rip them apart until he started coming up with his own concept of what would work for VR. So it's kind of like a soap opera after that. What happens is, we got Lucky down in the corner over there. Lucky put his product online onto a forum where VR enthusiasts basically shared their information. And this guy in the top center here, does anyone know who that is? He made a game called Doom. This guy's name is John Carmack. And so John Carmack worked with ID Software for a long time, and he was a big innovator in the 3D space. He created a lot of engines from scratch, games such as Doom and Wolfenstein, Quake, stuff like that. He's also into VR. And he happened to run into Lucky's posts and wanted to see this prototype. And Lucky literally mailed him the prototype and said, try it out. Sent it to John Carmack. No lawyers, no nothing, just sent it. And he thought it was a fantastic idea. It had potential, but it was still pretty rough at this time. So what ends up happening is that John Carmack, having the clout that he has in ID Software, ends up deciding that this is the future of what he wants to do. This virtual reality stuff, the Lawnmower Man vision is finally going to happen, and this is the path to it. He ends up leaving ID Software and starting to join this company with Lucky. So then what happens from there is Lucky and Carmack, kind of skipping some steps, meet Mark Zuckerberg. Mark Zuckerberg tries out this basically, we'll see in a minute, it's called the DK1, the first development kit, and sees high potential in it and decides that this is something Facebook wants to get involved with. So he writes a gigantic check to acquire Oculus to the tune of $2 billion. So what happens after that is this guy up in the corner, this guy named Gabe over at Steam. There becomes this like connection between these VR developers where you've got Gabe, you got Facebook, you got Oculus, all kind of working in tandem to develop this technology and make it work in a way that doesn't create simulator sickness. Because up to this point, they've got it working in theory, but it's still kind of jarring. It doesn't really work that great. Oh, and by the way, not to be left out, Google wants in on the game as well, so Cardboard pops up out of nowhere, essentially. And Cardboard, if you haven't seen it before, is literally a piece of cardboard with a couple lenses in it. And it works pretty well for VR. Whereas Oculus costs a lot of money, Cardboard is, you know, 10 bucks. So they came at it from a totally different angle. So all this is kind of mixing. This is around 2012, 2013, all this is cooking. And so then this happens. This is the evolution of the Oculus Rift. This is the DK1 kit that gets shipped out to people that had the Kickstarter. And this was a generation after the Kickstarter. So this one kind of got it rolling. This is the first one I tried. And it shows the potential of the technology, but serious simulation sickness with this device. Maybe 5 minutes if you're really tolerant. You can ride roller coasters, you might be able to use that for a while. They get acquired by Facebook. More money, more technology, DK2 comes out. And DK2 creates a continuous experience that kind of gets rid of simulator sickness. They're finally getting to the point where this is a product that people would want to play for more than 5 minutes. And then the very far right-hand side, this is the CV1 hardware that came out this year. And this is very revolutionary stuff. This one actually works really good. Simulator sickness is pretty much gone at this point. The fidelity is in each eye, 2K by 2K, which is a nice, sharp image. And it's able to run high-end video games, graphics, and experiences. So now we're getting to the point where CV1 technology is like competitive and a real product to offer to the masses. So over the next couple of years, basically between 2013 and today, a lot of clones came out. And a lot of stuff. We talked about the Cardboard. And the top right-hand side, we've got a mobile VR offering. We've got the HTC Vive. And then you've got the Oculus Rift is basically the cornerstones of this VR stuff that's coming out today. And announced 2 days ago, this slide came in last minute. In the bottom right-hand corner, you can see this gentleman here looking down. On the back of his head is a tiny computer, essentially. And so Facebook announced that they're going to do 2 more $250 million rounds into this technology. And one of the things they're working on is a wireless, high-fidelity virtual reality headset. And so they want this to come in to be cheaper than the current headset that's out there, and to be more of their commercial, untethered offering. Because that's kind of the dividing line at this point is you either have a mobile VR headset, which works if you're playing low quality, not low quality, but low system performant games on your phones, essentially. Or on the other side, you have to be tethered to your high-powered computer to get these more robust experiences. That device is going to be the middle ground, essentially, is what they're shooting for. And then just, it's worth mentioning, those hand controllers up there let you see your hands in virtual space, which is really fun. And not to be left out of the party, Google released the Daydream. Kind of looks like sweatpants, but it's supposed to be 30% lighter. So they're going for, you can take any Android phone and clip it in there and kind of get the cardboardy virtual reality experience on the cheap and lightweight. So one of the issues right now with VR headsets is they're pretty big. They're kind of heavy. So this is their offering to say, if you want to buy something that's not going to cost you a lot of money and you want to use it with your Android phone, there's this. And this is also a new announcement as well. This is a couple days old at this point. And then the clones. The clones are happening. And this is good news for us as VR enthusiasts that the price of this stuff's going to go down. Right here we have this $99 VR thing with, it looks like 2 antennas on top of it. I mean, it's not the sleekest model I've seen. But the thing is that the phones clip into all these. So other manufacturers are already looking at this technology and saying, how can we replicate it ourselves? Which is, if you look back on the history of PCs, for example, why the cost of like a PC rig has gone down is that other companies have basically reverse manufactured it and offered new products for it. So the clones are starting to come out. So basically all this gets to the point where if you're going to develop your own game, the first question to ask yourself is, do you want to make a game for mobile, or do you want to make a game for the desktop? Is your game going to be high fidelity, or is your game going to be more like mobile quality? Are you doing video, or are you doing high resolution? On the left-hand side, those are the big competitors in the mobile space. We talked about Samsung Gear VR, Google Cardboard, and Google Daydream. On the right-hand side, you've got Oculus Rift, HTC Vive, and coming soon, the PlayStation 3 is going to have virtual reality support. Once you've made that decision, it is very much worth your time to read all the documentation and hardware specifications for the device because, as we talked about earlier, you don't hit these specifications correctly, and then you end up with basically problems, dropped frames, and you lose a sense of immersion. So if you go through the documentation, like Oculus Rift, that's a pretty high-end computer. That's like $1,200 right now. Whereas Google Cardboard, if you want to make a game that has basically mass appeal for anybody that has an Android phone, you can get into that a lot easier without having to basically buy a tower and buy all the Oculus hardware. So if you follow the specifications and you follow the best practices, you're rewarded with essentially a sense of presence. And that's the magic they're doing with VR now, where you put the headset on and it kind of transports you into a different environment by capturing all your total vision and total audio. So you kind of feel like you're in a different world for a bit. And that only works when you're making it work with the hardware that you're running on. Because if you don't, you start dropping frames, you're back to simulator sickness again. And that's really the art of trying to develop software for virtual realities, being able to make the lowest common denominator work smooth and continuously pile on better features to it. So options for development. If you're starting from scratch, there's two great options that are both free right now. There's the Unity game engine, and there's the Unreal game engine. Either one works, either one is free to just get going with right off the bat, and they both support virtual reality out of the box. That wasn't necessarily the case. Oops, sorry about that. This wasn't necessarily the case maybe a year and a half ago. This is a screenshot of a checklist I used to use to publish Oculus Rift games on virtual reality. These are all the things you have to go through to make sure the headset worked. It's kind of a lot. But the good news is, at least for Unity, this is currently what you have to do. Check that one box that says virtual reality support. They've done all the hard work for you. So Unity is a very attractive option. Unreal Engine also has similar features like that. So the actual getting into is more about now developing your game rather than messing around with hardware specifications. So once you have this game, and you want to release it out to the public, there's a few ways you can do that. It's still early days for VR, so there's not a giant audience for it, but there are a few places people look a lot. So from the top, you have the Oculus Store. Any Oculus headset that ships out ships with this store built into it, so everybody has it by default. The tough side about this is you have to have a very polished product, and you should probably have a business put together already. You can do it without a business, but you might want to see the talk on game and law that's going on later today. Steam's also another option. You can self-publish on Steam. Steam, you can go through a program they call Greenlight. So your product goes on the website, you basically market it the way you're going to market it, and then the community votes to see if they want to see this product actually show up. That's another way to do it. It's pretty high entry and a lot of work to get on the store. The last option, which I would recommend for any indie developer, is itch.io. And that's a website where you can upload your game and upload your marketing material, and then you can set a price for it, or you can set it to be downloaded for free. And there's no process of approval, essentially. You can put any game you want on itch.io. And then from there, you can perhaps build your community, then go to Steam, and then go to Oculus for your publishing options. And then today, if you want to try out some VR, the NVIDIA Funhouse is demoing on the Vive. And then the Reign of Arrows is going to be out there too. So that's a game also on the Vive, where you shoot arrows and go down a river. It looks cool. I haven't tried it yet, but they're going to demo that, and it looks fun. So essentially, thank you for listening to this talk. That's all I have today for VR development. Hopefully that was helpful to you with the background, the current ways to build your games using those two engines, and then a way to get them out on the internet for people to download. And if you have any questions, go ahead and feel free to ask them. Thanks. We have one game released called Halloween Dream World, and that was developed for the DK2 hardware, so it's not totally modern at this point, but it's still a fun game. And we have a few other games that are coming out on itch.io soon.
As a person that wants to experiment with VR, what type of product would you recommend? Would you recommend the higher end hardware or the kind of cheaper clones?
I'd really say it depends what type of game you want to make. Do you want to make a mobile game, or do you want to make like a more PC-based game?
PC-based.
PC based, I'd start right with the higher end stuff. I'd go right to the Vive or the Oculus Rift. And now they're more commercially available. There was a problem actually getting hardware for a long time, but now you can go to a Best Buy, for example, and pick them up. So I'd recommend that first.
Would the higher end ones work well with the mobile ones as well, or
They,
other specific mobile?
they work, kind of. It's not necessarily made for the higher end headsets, so some of it looks a little distorted. But it's kind of like mileage may vary, that's what I'd say. Basically, you're designing for one, you're designing for the other at this point.
You showed a slide with several clone goggles. Many of those are used for drone racing, for first-person RC things nowadays.
Okay.
That's why they're $50, and that's why they've got the two
Antennas.
different antennas that are sticking out of them. So are you saying that I can get some of my game stuff to run through that?
Yeah, you can. Yep. Using an engine like Unity, what's interesting is you can develop a product that goes to either the phone or it can go to the higher end hardware. So yeah, I'm not exactly sure the RC car racing, if there's like specifics for that, but the gist of it is that way. Yeah. All right.
Would you say we should focus on the game and, like, let's say we can't afford a Vive or an Oculus right away, and that's what we're developing for? Would you say focus on the game, or really work your ass off to save up so that you can have it and
Okay.
develop for it?
All right, that's a great question. And that's something we struggled with as well, just trying to get our hands on hardware. My advice is, like, the St. Louis game developer community is a good place to start with, because folks do have that hardware and some of them will let you test your games on it. So that's a good place to start. And as far as build, you can start building now and getting good at something like Unity or getting good at Unreal Engine while you save your money for some hardware. It's not a bad approach for it. I don't know of any place yet that has like public accessibility where you can go in and use VR hardware to test, but hopefully that comes up soon.
To help him out a little bit, I was doing some research locally, and there's a company that they do it for parties, but you can actually rent equipment from them for X amount of hours for whatever use, so that could potentially be something to look into as well. If you're ready to test your game at a certain point, you can rent it for X amount of hours, and then whenever you're done, it gets returned to them.
That's really cool. That's a great idea. In testing, it's tough to say like test as much as you can if you don't have hardware, but the reality is that some of the stuff you build in the game isn't going to work in the headset, because essentially when you put the headset on, the way the game interprets it is two different cameras. So if you're using something like particle effects, which normally render at one camera, one eye sees a slightly different angle while the other eye sees a different angle, and you end up with this really weird looking thing that you have to fix. So testing often, if you can, is really good in this, especially in this VR marketplace, because it's still kind of dicey. Some of the stuff, some of the engines are catching up to the way that this new hardware works.
Are there simulators available to help figure this out?
Not that I'm aware of, and I've looked. Basically, you have the hardware to test on, or kind of out of luck at this point. Yep.
Has there ever been a game that you know of that, in terms of the game, is interactive with the VR? Like, it's not just a ongoing process of a game and you're just kind of looking around, but like you looking around actually affects how things go in the game. Have you ever had that?
Yeah.
If you, for example, someone in the game that's next to you, if you don't look at them, you won't see them, and that affects the storyline or something like that?
There's one game that comes to mind called Dread Halls, and Dread Halls is a dungeon crawler. And so when you get the headset on, as you're looking forward, you're looking at the environment essentially, but when you look down, a map appears, and you can see the map as you're walking along. And there's monsters in Dread Halls that, I don't know if you're familiar with this Doctor Who episode where they got basically these angels, and when you're looking at them, they look like a statue. When you turn around, they come at you. So in this game, if you're not watching them the entire time, they come at you. So that's one example of it. So there's a lot going on with that right now. And a lot of the interfaces work by looking at certain things, and there's this little, basically like a target. As you move your eyes, the target stays centered. And when you focus on something, it detects what you're looking at. So either at that point, a little menu will come up where it'll select something, or you interact with that object by looking at it and pressing a button. All right, thanks guys for coming out to the talk.